Hello everyone. Today we're recording this on ANZAC Day, so I hope you had a very reflective and peaceful time yesterday as you remembered those who had fallen during the wars and those affected by war. Yesterday on the Auckland Diocesan site, we celebrated the Eucharist here from our chapel. Father Pat Breeze was the celebrant and I preached and sang My Sons of Gallipoli as part of that presentation. We'd like to just share that homily and song with you for this posting today, given the fact that it's really ANZAC weekend. And I pray God's blessing for you, and we do think of all those people who lost their lives and gave their lives, sacrificed their lives.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. In the evening, the disciples went down to the shore of the lake and got into a boat to make for Capernaum on the other side of the lake. It was getting dark by now, and Jesus had still not rejoined them. The wind was strong, and the sea was getting rough. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when they saw Jesus walking on the lake and coming towards the boat. This frightened them, but he said, "It is I. Do not be afraid." They were taking him into the boat, but in no time it reached the shore at the place they were making for. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Just like our Easter ceremonies this year, our celebration of ANZAC Day is a very different one. Because we were unable to attend any of the dawn services and to lay wreaths at the various cenotaphs around the country. For many people, this will be a time of grief, not able to join with others to remember fallen friends and family members. The huge crowds and touching scenes of grandparents, parents and grandchildren in the early hours of the morning, standing with pride, displaying medals of honour to remember family and all the fallen, will be absent from our screens this year. For the most part, the social aspect of the day will be missing too. We make the most of what we have and join in prayer and in this Eucharist from our chapel and connect with you at home to remember those who bore witness to faithfulness by giving their lives for those they loved. We remember too those connected to our own families. My father lost 2 of his cousins in the First World War, and the only grandparent I ever met fought during the Gallipoli campaign. We remember and give thanks for the relationship and bonds forged between Australia and New Zealand as well on this day. This Easter reminds us of Christ's gift of peace. And we heard he is the Prince of Peace, and he offers us an enduring peace. And peace is always in the forefront of our thoughts when we celebrate this day, and all those who sacrificed their lives. Our opening prayer puts it beautifully. resurrect them in our true homeland, and perfect that peace for which they longed and died. Our gospel story of the disciples battling the wind and waves on the lake in the dark is relatable when we think about those who experience the deprivation, darkness, and horrors of war. They underwent huge battles personally, physically, and emotionally. We hear that Jesus was not with them, not with his disciples in the boat. Maybe this was the experience of many soldiers who felt Christ had abandoned them. This was Christ's experience on the cross. Maybe this has been your experience at times too, with what you may have had to battle with in life. And aren't so many people in our world today too experiencing this loneliness, this seemingly being abandoned? When it comes to wartime, I'm inspired to know there were chaplains of various denominations who must have been a huge comfort and support to so many in their hour of need. Christ, through the sacraments of reconciliation, anointing, and Eucharist, was at the very heart of their sufferings and struggle. And what about mates? What was it like for them? People of faith, supporting and encouraging each other at such a dreadful time. And medical personnel too, people of faith who would have supported and encouraged each other through their words and actions, and offering some kind of healing and support to those who were damaged by the horror of war. Jesus walking on the water is the first instance in John's Gospel where he displays who he really is. This is God walking on the water. And he assures them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." To whisper and repeat those words in our heart of hearts is a huge comfort for what we are dealing with in our lives. To know that God never abandons us, even if it feels like it sometimes. Certainly for the disciples, the second part of their journey proved much easier with the presence of Jesus than the first part when he was absent from them. We hear that they reached the shore at the place they were making for in no time. What was the place the ANZACs were making for? What is the place we are making for? A war to end all wars has not eventuated. We as human beings are still battling the winds and the storms of injustice, inequality, greed, fear of the other, oppression and tyranny, triggering war and stifling freedom. The little and big successes in peace, the little and big successes in peacemaking, both personally and on the world stage, and choosing non-violence are to be acknowledged and celebrated. And self-sacrifice towards those still affected by war and outreach to displaced peoples and refugees is an inspiration. All these examples and many more is the light of Christ breaking through into our darkness, renewing hope and enabling us and our fellow travellers not to give in to despair. Our boat is heading towards the shore. Our trust is in him, whose voice cuts across the violence of the storm. It is I. Do not be afraid. I'd like to share with you now a song that I composed after visiting Gallipoli in 2003. There was the war in Iraq, that second war was about to break out. I thought of home, I looked towards home, and I was aware of so many young people and a number of Kiwis and Australians that were buried all around me. They never returned home. I was very aware of them, and also those still affected by war in our world. I offer this song for all of them and for all of us. We sang, God of nations, at thy feet, as we stood on that sacred shore, with a heartfelt pride somewhere deep inside, for the sons of Gallipoli. We sang Ehoah Tua from the place they called ANZAC. We gazed out to see where our home would be, for the sons of Gallipoli. How still you lie, and how still you die on other hillsides. We sang, hear our voices, we entreat, as the wind blew from off the sea, with a tearful sigh and the question why, for the sons of Gallipoli. We sang, God defend our free land, and for all whose lives are torn, with one voice implore no more talk of war, for the sons of Gallipoli. How still they lie, and how still they die on other hillsides. We sang, God of nations, at thy feet, as we stood on that sacred shore, with a heartfelt pride somewhere deep inside, for the sons of Gallipoli.